I thought it was just another doorbell, but when I opened it, his hand came down like a verdict. He didn't know what the postal worker had delivered, or who would knock next. From that first slap, I understood. To protect my mother and myself, I'd need the law, not pleas. I would turn that very door into the place where he'd be served justice. He thought I was weak. I let him think that, until the day our special guest arrived, carrying a search warrant, subpoenas, and handcuffs. My name is Harper Lane, and I'm 34 years old. I work as a compliance officer at Northbridge Care Systems, a private healthcare company in Raven Oaks, a mid-sized city in the heart of the Midwest. My job is all about documentation, regulations, and making sure every form is filed correctly. I never imagined those skills would become my weapons. That Tuesday afternoon, I drove to my mother's house with a stack of health insurance forms that needed her signature. Mom had remarried 2 years ago to Charles Keaton, a construction contractor with a reputation for landing big municipal projects and an even bigger reputation for charm. At first, I'd been happy for her. She deserved someone who'd treat her well after Dad passed. But charm, I learned, could be a mask for something much darker. The house smelled like lemon polish and fresh coffee when I walked in. Mom was in the kitchen, her hands wrapped around a ceramic mug, shoulders tense. "Hi, Mom. I brought those forms we talked about." She glanced toward the hallway. "Charles is in his office. Maybe we should wait." The doorbell rang. "I'll get it," I said, setting the folder on the counter. Through the peephole, I saw a postal worker holding a certified mail envelope. I opened the door and signed for it, noting it was addressed to Mom. The return address was from a bank I didn't recognize. "Who was it?" Charles's voice boomed from behind me. I turned, holding the envelope. Certified mail for Mom. His face darkened. I'd seen that look before. The tightening jaw, the narrowed eyes. But I wasn't prepared for what came next. "You think you're clever, don't you? Snooping through our finances?" His hand swung before I could respond. The slap sent me stumbling backward onto the front porch. My cheek burned, and I tasted copper. Behind him, Mom gasped, but didn't move, frozen in the doorway. I started. "Shut up," he grabbed my arm, fingers digging deep. "You come here, pretending to help, but you're just like your father, always sticking your nose where it doesn't belong." He shoved me down the steps. I caught myself on the railing, my knee scraping against concrete. The certified mail envelope fluttered to the ground. "Charles, please." Mom's voice was barely a whisper. "Get inside. Evelyn." He didn't look at her. His eyes stayed locked on me. "And you, next time you want to visit, you call first. Better yet, don't come at all." The door slammed. I sat on the bottom step for a moment, catching my breath. My hands shook as I picked up the envelope and noticed the doorbell camera mounted beside the frame. A small red light blinked steadily. Instead of crying or screaming, I did what I do best. I documented. I took photos of my swelling cheek and the scrape on my knee. I saved the USPS tracking receipt from the certified mail. I noted the time, 3:47 p.m. The date, Tuesday, March 14th. When I got to my car, I opened my laptop and logged into the doorbell camera app. I'd helped Mom set it up last Christmas. The footage was all there. The slap, the shove, the entire assault captured in high definition. I downloaded it immediately and uploaded a copy to my cloud storage. My phone buzzed. A text from Mom. "I'm so sorry, honey. He's just stressed about work. Please don't make this worse." I stared at those words for a long time. Make this worse? He'd just assaulted me on their front porch in broad daylight. But I understood what she couldn't say. She was trapped, and she was scared. I typed back, "I love you, Mom. Don't worry about me." Then I opened a new document on my laptop and began typing. Incident report, March 14th, 3:47 p.m. Location, 1847, Maple Grove Lane. Witnesses, Evelyn Lane Keaton. Doorbell camera footage. Injuries documented. Facial contusion. Knee abrasion. Evidence preserved. Video footage. USPS receipt, photographs. I wouldn't fight Charles with my fists or my words. I'd fight him with something far more powerful: paper trails, evidence chains, and the cold, hard truth that documentation never lies. As I drove away, I made myself a promise. I would turn that door, the one where he'd shown his true face, into the very place where justice would come knocking. He thought he'd won by throwing me out. He had no idea he'd just started a war he couldn't win. The paper kind always leaves marks. The cracks in Charles's facade had been showing long before that Tuesday. I'd watched him systematically isolate my mother over the past 18 months, using money as both carrot and stick. "Family handles family business," he'd say whenever Mom mentioned wanting to talk to her financial advisor. He'd convinced her to add him to all her accounts for convenience. Then came the power of attorney. "Just temporary," he'd assured her. "To handle bills while we're on vacation." That vacation never happened. 3 days after the doorbell incident, I visited Mom while Charles was at a job site. She let me in reluctantly, glancing at the driveway every few seconds. "I need to grab Dad's old fishing tackle," I lied. "Is it still in the basement?" While pretending to search, I photographed the boxes of paperwork stacked in the utility room. Most were labeled in Mom's neat handwriting: tax returns, insurance, Dad's estate, but one unmarked box caught my attention. Inside, I found photocopies of loan documents, personal guarantees Mom had supposedly signed for Charles's company. I knew my mother's signature like my own heartbeat, the swooping E in Evelyn, the way she dotted her I's. These signatures were close, but wrong. The pressure was different. The angle was off. "Harper, did you find it?" Mom called from upstairs. "Still looking," I called back, quickly photographing each document. Deeper in the box, I discovered pay stubs from Charles's construction sites, names I didn't recognize, but social security numbers that repeated across different workers, ghost employees. My compliance training kicked in. This was textbook payroll fraud. Then I found it. A quitclaim deed dated last December, during the blizzard that knocked out power for 3 days. The deed transferred ownership of the cabin at Pine Hollow, Dad's fishing retreat that he'd left to Mom, directly to Charles. Mom's signature was at the bottom, witnessed by 2 names I'd never heard. "That was just tax paperwork," Mom said when I carefully asked her about documents from December. Her eyes didn't meet mine. "Charles said it would save us money." I wanted to shake her, to show her the photos on my phone. Instead, I nodded and changed the subject. Over the next week, I built my timeline. Every evening after work, I'd spread out my findings. January 2022, Charles added to Mom's bank accounts. March 2022, power of attorney signed. July 2022, first personal guarantee with questionable signature. December 2022, Pine Hollow cabin transferred via quitclaim deed. January 2023, 3 new employees added to Keaton Construction payroll. February 2023, $47,000 loan against Mom's house for business expansion. My neighbor, Mrs. Delilah Morse, became an unexpected ally. She'd worked as a bookkeeper for 40 years before retiring. When I mentioned I was helping with some family financial planning, her eyes sharpened. "Is this about your mother and that contractor?" she asked. "My late husband always said Charles Keaton's numbers never added up." She invited me for tea and emerged from her basement with a dusty external hard drive. "George saved everything, said you never know when documentation might matter." On the drive were spreadsheets her husband had received when Charles had accidentally sent a mass email to his entire contact list instead of his accountant. The spreadsheet showed payments to Northway Procurement LLC for materials that, according to the project numbers, were already billed to the city. "Mom, we need to talk about protecting your assets." I tried one more time over lunch. "Charles handles all that," she said, her voice flat. "He says I don't have a head for numbers." "Mom, the cabin is better in his name for tax purposes." She gripped her coffee cup tighter. "Please, Harper, don't make waves. You don't understand the pressure he's under." I understood perfectly the pressure of maintaining a fraud scheme while keeping his victim compliant, but I also understood that Mom wasn't ready to see it. Fear had rewired her reality. That night, I organized everything into color-coded folders. Blue, forged signatures. Green, payroll fraud. Yellow, double billing through Northway procurement. Red, asset transfers and loans. Each document was labeled, dated, and cross-referenced. I created a master index linking every transaction to supporting evidence. If Charles thought he was building an empire on paper, he'd forgotten one thing. Paper trails work both ways. I looked at the stack of evidence and thought about my mother, shrinking smaller every day in that house. Charles had built his walls carefully, but walls made of lies always have weak points. It was time to find a sledgehammer, the legal kind. My compliance work had taught me that evidence without organization is just paper, so I turned my dining room into a war room, mapping Charles's fraud like a prosecutor building a case. I started with the timeline, now expanded with Mrs. Morse's data. Each transaction became a pushpin on my wall. Red string connecting related events. The pattern emerged clearly. Charles would bid on city projects, create ghost employees to inflate labor costs, then funnel the excess through Northway Procurement LLC for non-existent materials. Cross-referencing was tedious but revealing. Invoice number 3847 for Grade A concrete from Northway matched a city payment for the same amount, but the actual supplier, according to Mrs. Morse's records, had charged 40% less. The difference disappeared into Northway's accounts. I photographed every construction site listed in Charles's recent contracts. The Riverside Bridge renovation showed 6 workers on site, but payroll claimed 14. The Heritage Park Pavilion, supposedly requiring premium lumber worth $30,000, was built with standard pressure-treated wood I could price at any hardware store for a third of that. My Excel spreadsheets grew into a database. Each ghost employee got a profile: name, supposed address, social security number, pay rate, and which projects they'd worked. The patterns were lazy. Addresses that didn't exist. Social security numbers in sequence. All direct deposits going to accounts at the same bank branch Charles used. "What are you doing with all this?" Mrs. Morse asked during one of our documentation sessions. "Building a case," I said, scanning another receipt. "But I need more than fraud. I need to show how he's trapping my mother." She adjusted her glasses. "Smart girl. Property crimes get attention. Domestic abuse gets protection orders." The forged signatures were my smoking gun. I drove to 3 banks, requesting copies of all documents Mom had supposedly signed. Each signature told a story. The real ones from before Charles showed Mom's natural hand. Relaxed, confident. The forgeries were pressed too hard, like someone trying too carefully to copy. I consulted handwriting analysis guides, marking each deviation. The lowercase a in Lane was consistently wrong. The final in Evelyn lifted differently. In court, these differences would matter. Late nights blurred together. I'd leave work at Northbridge, grab takeout, and dive back into evidence. My coffee table disappeared under bank statements. My laptop held gigabytes of scanned documents, all backed up to 3 different cloud services. Then came the breakthrough, hidden in Mom's old insurance papers. I found something Charles had missed. A trust document Dad had set up years ago. The Pine Hollow cabin wasn't just property. It was held in trust for Mom's benefit, with a crucial clause: any transfer under duress, undue influence, or circumstances involving domestic violence or financial abuse could be reversed, with the perpetrator losing all claim to family assets. Dad, the careful estate planner, had built in a failsafe. I photographed every page, then found the attorney who'd drafted it, still practicing in Raven Oaks. He remembered my parents, remembered insisting on that protection clause. "Your father was worried about your mother being too trusting," he said. "Wanted to make sure no one could take advantage." Mom's denial hit its peak when I tried one final time to show her the evidence. "These signatures aren't yours," I said, spreading the bank documents on her kitchen table. She looked away. I must have been tired. Mom, this ghost employee has your maiden name backward. Sarah Matthews instead of Martha Samuels. Charles isn't even trying. Stop, her voice cracked. Please, Harper, just stop. You don't live here. You don't know what it's like when he's angry. That's when I understood. She knew. Of course she knew. But acknowledging it meant admitting she was trapped. And that truth was too terrifying to face. I gathered my papers quietly. I love you, Mom. When you're ready, I'll be here. That night, I completed my masterpiece, a comprehensive index of evidence. Tab 1, Doorbell Assault Video and Medical Documentation. Tab 2, Forged Signatures with Handwriting Analysis. Tab 3, Ghost Employee Profiles with SSN Patterns. Tab 4, Northway, Procurement LLC, Payment Flows. Tab 5, Property Transfers and Trust Documents. Tab 6, Bank Records Showing Financial Isolation. Tab 7, Timeline of Control and Abuse. Each tab contained copies of originals, certified where possible. Every page was numbered, every claim supported by documentation. The index itself ran 12 pages, single-spaced, with hyperlinks in the digital version. I printed 3 complete sets, stored one in my apartment, one in a safety deposit box, and kept the third ready to deliver. Charles thought he was protected by Mom's silence and his civic connections, but he'd forgotten the first rule of compliance. Every crime leaves a paper trail, and I'd followed his all the way to the end. The hunter was about to become the hunted. He just didn't know it yet. The law offices of Serrano and Associates occupied the 3rd floor of a restored Victorian downtown. Maya Serrano had a reputation for taking cases other attorneys wouldn't touch, the complicated ones that required both legal expertise and strategic thinking. "This is impressive work," she said, finishing her review of my documentation. "Most people come here with accusations. You've brought me a federal case." I sat forward. "I need more than criminal charges. I need to protect my mother." Maya's fingers drummed on the evidence binder. "We'll run parallel tracks, civil protection and criminal prosecution, but first," she picked up her phone. "Diana, can you connect me with Jack Hoffman at the Financial Crimes Unit?" The Midland State Financial Crimes Unit operated out of a nondescript building near the Capitol. Investigator Jack Hoffman looked like an accountant who'd wandered into law enforcement, wire-rimmed glasses, careful hands, and eyes that missed nothing. "Ms. Lane," he said after 2 hours reviewing my evidence, "you've done most of our work for us. This Northway procurement scheme alone is worth a dozen indictments." "I don't care about prison time," I said. "I care about getting him away from my mother and recovering what he stole." Hoffman exchanged glances with Maya. "We can do both, but we'll need your help." The strategy took shape over several meetings. Track 1. Immediate Protection. Emergency Temporary Restraining Order, TRO, based on the documented assault. Petition for financial conservatorship to freeze Charles's access to Mom's accounts. Court-appointed receiver for the Pine Hollow property pending investigation. Charts. Track 2. Asset Recovery. Civil suit to reverse fraudulent transfers under the Trust Protection Clause. Attachment orders on Northway, procurement's accounts. Constructive trust claim on any property bought with stolen funds. Charkas. Track 3. Criminal Prosecution. State charges for assault, forgery, and elder financial abuse. Federal charges for wire fraud and tax evasion. Parallel IRS investigation into the ghost employee scheme. "The beauty is the timing," Maya explained. "Once we file the TRO and it's granted, Charles has to stay away. That gives us room to execute search warrants without endangering your mother." Hoffman added, "We'll need him somewhere predictable when we move. Somewhere he can't destroy evidence or intimidate witnesses." I thought about Charles's patterns, his need for control, his ego. I might have an idea about that. The court documents were works of art. Maya crafted each filing to build on the others. The Taro petition included screenshots from the doorbell camera, my medical documentation, and a psychologist's assessment of the control patterns evident in the financial abuse. The conservatorship petition walked through each forged signature, each unauthorized transfer, with exhibits that made the fraud undeniable. The receiver request for Pine Hollow cited the trust provisions Dad had carefully included. Judge Harrison is tough but fair, Maya said. She hates financial predators who target family members. We filed everything under seal initially, preventing Charles from getting advance warning. The court set an emergency hearing for the TRO within 48 hours. Now we need the criminal side ready, Hoffman said. Search warrant affidavits are drafted. We've got subpoenas for bank records, email accounts, and his office computers. The postal inspectors are interested too. Certified mail fraud is their jurisdiction. I stared at the stack of legal documents, each one a precisely aimed weapon. When do we strike? That depends, Maya said, on when we can guarantee Charles will be home with his records, unable to interfere or escape. The trap needed bait, and I knew exactly what Charles couldn't resist. The combination of money and control, served with a side of humiliation for me. What if he thought he'd won? I suggested. What if there was a family dinner where he could gloat about a new contract, with me forced to attend and congratulate him? Hoffman smiled slowly. And you could ensure he'd have brought home his files to prepare? He always does his final reviews at the home office, says job sites are too noisy for real thinking. Maya made notes. We'd need precise timing. TRO goes into effect. Search warrant executes. Asset freeze hits, all simultaneously. Like dominoes, I said. He built his house of cards on paper. We'll knock it down the same way. The meeting ended with a timeline. File the sealed motions, Monday. Emergency hearing, Wednesday, if granted. Execute everything Thursday evening. Ms. Lane, Hoffman said as I gathered my copies, you realize this will destroy him, financially, professionally, personally. I thought about my mother's shrinking voice, the cabin at Pine Hollow that held memories of my father, the bruise that had bloomed across my cheek. He destroyed himself, I said. I'm just doing the paperwork. The next phase would require delicate choreography, but I'd learned from Charles himself. The best trap is one that looks like an opportunity until the door slams shut. Setting the stage required the delicate touch of a chess grandmaster. Every piece had to move naturally, without alerting Charles to the checkmate approaching. I texted Mom on Monday evening, keeping my tone light and defeated. I want to apologize for overstepping. Maybe we could have dinner Thursday? I heard Charles landed the Riverside expansion contract. Her response came quickly, relief evident even in text. That would be wonderful. Charles will be so pleased you're ready to move forward. I'd chosen Thursday carefully. Charles always brought contracts home on Thursdays to review before Friday submissions. His home office would be full of current documents, computers logged into active accounts, and files he couldn't claim were old or irrelevant. Tuesday morning, I called Mom again. I'd like to cook dinner for everyone. Show there's no hard feelings. Could I come early to prepare? Maybe around 3? Of course, sweetheart. Charles won't be home until 5:30. Perfect. The Turo hearing was Wednesday at 2 p.m. If granted, it would be active by Thursday afternoon. But Charles wouldn't know. Service would come with the search warrant. The bait needed one more element. I visited the post office with a carefully prepared package. I need to send this certified mail. Return receipt requested, I told the clerk. Delivery attempted Thursday afternoon. Please. Inside was a thick envelope labeled Insurance Documentation. Signature required. Charles would insist on handling it himself, keeping him home instead of leaving early for any job site visits. Wednesday's hearing was held in Judge's chambers. Judge Harrison, a silver-haired woman with sharp eyes, reviewed the evidence methodically. Ms. Lane, she said, studying the doorbell footage on her laptop. This assault is clearly documented. The financial abuse evidence is substantial. But you understand a TRO is a serious matter? Your Honor, Maya responded. We're seeking protection not just from physical violence, but from ongoing financial devastation. Mr. Keaton has systematically isolated and defrauded Mrs. Lane Keaton. The daughter was assaulted for merely accepting mail. Judge Harrison signed the order. Temporary restraining order granted. Mr. Keaton is prohibited from coming within 100 yards of either petitioner, except for the one-time removal of belongings under police supervision. Asset freeze on all accounts pending the full hearing in 2 weeks. Hoffman was waiting outside chambers. We're set, search warrant signed, the postal inspectors, state police, and my team will coordinate. 5:45 p.m. Thursday. Thursday arrived crisp and bright. I loaded my car with grocery bags and my secret weapon. A portable document scanner smaller than a paperback book, equipped with its own LTE connection. It could scan and upload directly to cloud storage without touching Charles's network. Mom greeted me with nervous energy. Charles is excited about dinner. He wants to share news about the expansion. I hugged her carefully, noting the long sleeves in warm weather. Everything's going to be fine, Mom. The kitchen became my command center, as I chopped vegetables and marinated chicken. I mentally mapped the house. Charles's office was off the main hallway. I'd need maybe 3 minutes to plant the scanner. Mom, I'm making your favorite cream sauce. Could you run to the corner store for heavy cream? I forgot it. Of course. She grabbed her purse, eager to help make the peace dinner perfect. The moment her car left the driveway, I moved. Charles's office reeked of cigar smoke and false authority. His desk was cluttered with contracts, invoices, bank statements, a fraudster's buffet. I slipped the scanner behind a row of binders on the bookshelf, positioning it to face the desk. The device was nearly invisible, its small green light hidden by book spines. I activated the motion sensor and automated upload function. Any document placed on that desk would be captured and transmitted. Back in the kitchen, I had the sauce simmering when Mom returned. We worked side by side, her gradually relaxing as we fell into old patterns. At 4:30, my phone buzzed. The Postal Service tracking showed out for delivery. At 5:15, Charles's truck rumbled into the driveway. He entered carrying a thick folder, the Riverside expansion documents, no doubt. Smells good, he admitted grudgingly, eyeing me with suspicion. Evelyn says you wanted to apologize. I kept stirring the sauce, not trusting myself to look at him. I overreacted. Family is family, right? He grunted approval. The doorbell rang. Certified mail, I heard the postal worker say. Need the homeowner's signature. Charles's heavy footsteps headed to the door. I heard him sign, then complain about more insurance garbage from Harper's meddling. 5:40 p.m., 5 minutes until the main event. Charles was in his office, reviewing contracts. Mom was setting the table with her good china. I was plating the appetizers when I heard it. 3 firm knocks, not the doorbell, knocks. Police, we have a warrant. The front door opened to a carefully orchestrated storm. 6 officers, 2 federal agents, Hoffman, Maya, and a court official carrying a stack of documents. Charles Keaton? Hoffman's voice carried clearly. I have a search warrant for these premises and a temporary restraining order requiring you to vacate immediately. What the hell? Sir, please step back. We're authorized to search your office, computers, and all financial documents. From the kitchen, I watched Mom's face cycle through confusion, fear, and then something else, a dawning understanding. Harper, she whispered, what did you do? I took her hand gently. What Dad would have wanted, protected you. The scanner in Charles's office had already uploaded 43 pages of documents before the search team even reached the room. The beauty of preparation meeting opportunity. Charles's roar of rage echoed through the house, but it was impotent now. The law stood between him and us, solid as granite and twice as cold. The doorbell rang again. Another certified letter arriving with precision timing. Charles, red-faced and cornered in his own foyer, snatched the pen from the postal worker. More of your insurance bullshit. Harper, he snarled, signing aggressively. He had no idea that the second visitor wasn't carrying mail at all. 3 knocks followed immediately. When the door opened, the full weight of orchestrated justice stepped inside. The Financial Crimes Unit Task Force, a U.S. Marshal, and a process server whose briefcase held documents that would dismantle Charles's empire piece by piece. "Mr. Keaton," Hoffman announced, holding up his credentials. "I'm Investigator Jack Hoffman with the State Financial Crimes Unit. We have warrants to search these premises and seize all electronic devices, financial records, and business documents." Behind him, Maya entered with the process server. "I'm serving you with a temporary restraining order and emergency asset freeze pursuant to Judge Harrison's order. You're required to vacate these premises immediately." Charles's jaw worked soundlessly. His eyes darted between the officers, searching for an escape that didn't exist. "This is my house. You can't—" "Actually," Maya interrupted smoothly, "it's Evelyn Lane Keaton's house. You were added to the deed through documents we have reason to believe were forged. The court has frozen all transfers pending investigation." A federal agent stepped forward with an evidence scanner. "Sir, I need you to step away from that desk." The systematic dismantling began. Officers methodically photographed Charles's office before touching anything. Every document was cataloged, every file preserved. The computer forensics team arrived with specialized equipment to image hard drives without altering data. "The Pine Hollow property has been placed under court receivership," the process server read from his documents. "All accounts associated with Northway Procurement LLC are frozen by federal order. The following construction contracts are suspended pending audit." The list went on. Each word stripped away another layer of Charles's control. My scanner had captured the crown jewels before the search began. Handwritten notes on the Riverside contract showing inflated materials costs, a draft email to his Northway partner about moving funds offshore, and, incredibly, a practice sheet where he'd been refining his forgery of Mom's signature. "Those employment records," an agent called from the office. "We've got multiples with the same social security number." "Tag it," Hoffman replied. "The IRS will want everything on the phantom employees." Charles lunged toward the office. "You can't take those. Client confidentiality." 2 officers stepped forward, blocking him. "Sir, interfering with a federal investigation is a separate charge. I'd advise against it." Maya handed Mom a document. "Mrs. Lane Keaton, this order confirms you have sole access to your personal accounts effective immediately. The locksmith is outside, ready to change the locks as soon as Mr. Keaton vacates." Mom's hands trembled as she read. For the first time in 2 years, I saw steel in her spine. "How long do I have to pack his things?" "That won't be necessary," Maya smiled. "Mr. Keaton has 15 minutes to collect personal items under supervision. Clothing, toiletries, personal effects only, no documents, electronics, or items of value under dispute." The process server pulled out another folder. "Mr. Keaton, you're also being served with notices of civil asset forfeiture proceedings. The federal government is seeking recovery of all profits from fraudulent contracts." Each revelation hit Charles like a physical blow. His construction site swagger evaporated as the reality crashed down. He wasn't facing a family squabble he could bully his way through. He was facing the mechanical grinding of a justice system that had his number, literally, in the case of the forensic accountants already tracing fund transfers. "Evelyn," Charles turned to Mom, his voice switching to the pleading tone I'd heard him use after his worst outbursts. "Baby, you don't understand. Harper's poisoned you against me. This is all a misunderstanding." "Mr. Keaton?" Judge Harrison's order was explicit. The process server interrupted. "The restraining order prohibits any contact with Mrs. Lane Keaton except through counsel." An agent emerged from the office carrying evidence bags. "Hoffman, you'll want to see this. Looks like correspondence about establishing accounts in the Caymans." My phone buzzed with an upload notification. The scanner had captured 127 pages total, including Charles's handwritten ledger showing the real distribution of the stolen funds. Digital breadcrumbs leading to offshore dreams that would never materialize. "This is entrapment," Charles shouted. his face purple with rage. "Harper set me up. That scanner." He'd seen it. Of course he had. But admitting he knew about it meant admitting he'd been in the office with the fraudulent documents. "What scanner?" Hoffman asked mildly. "We're executing a legal search warrant based on extensive documentation of financial crimes. If you're aware of additional evidence we should collect, please inform us." Charles's mouth snapped shut, realizing the trap within the trap. The locksmith's van pulled into the driveway just as a police officer escorted Charles out with a single suitcase. The mechanical whir of power tools began immediately, installing new deadbolts that Charles's keys would never turn. From the doorway, Charles looked back at me with pure hatred. "You think you've won? I have connections, lawyers. This isn't over." I finally met his eyes directly. "You're right. It's not over. The state charges are just the beginning. Wait until the IRS forensic team finishes with your phantom employees." "Oh, and Charles? That practice signature sheet you left on your desk? The one where you wrote Evelyn Lane Keaton 17 times trying to get it right? That uploaded beautifully." The evidence bag in Hoffman's hand contained that exact sheet. Charles's face went from purple to ash gray. As the police car pulled away with Charles in the back seat, Mom stood beside me on the porch he'd thrown me from just weeks earlier. The same doorway where this had all began was now the threshold of her freedom. "The investigator wants to review some documents with you," I said gently, "but Maya will be with you the whole time. You're safe now." Mom squeezed my hand, watching the locksmith work. "Your father always said you got his strategic mind." I thought about Dad's trust documents, his careful protections, his foresight to guard against exactly this kind of predator. "I learned from the best," I said. "Both of you." The living room transformed into a makeshift courtroom. Officers arranged evidence on the coffee table while Hoffman set up a laptop to display digital files. Mom sat in her favorite armchair, Maya beside her, while the systematic destruction of Charles's lies unfolded. "Mrs. Lane Keaton," Hoffman began, his tone professional but kind, "we need to verify which signatures are genuinely yours." He spread out loan documents like a poker dealer showing cards. Mom's face paled with each revelation. "This one, I never saw this before." Her finger trembled over a $30,000 loan guarantee. "And this, the cabin transfer, Charles said it was tax paperwork." "The notary on these documents," an agent interjected, "Nicole Stamford. She's already admitted to notarizing documents without you present. Charles paid her $500 per signature." From his position by the door, Charles erupted. "Evelyn, don't say anything. They're twisting everything." "Mr. Keaton," the marshal warned, "one more outburst and you'll be transported immediately." Charles tried another approach, attempting to move toward the evidence table. "Those are my business records. You need a specific warrant." The process server calmly produced another document. "Attachment order. Signed today. All business records at this location are subject to seizure." I watched Charles deflate as Maya played her ace. "Mr. Keaton, I should inform you that the trust established by Harold Lane contains specific provisions," she read from her tablet. "Article 7, Section 3. Any beneficiary or party who attempts to obtain trust assets through fraud, forgery, undue influence, or while committing acts of domestic violence shall forfeit all claims to trust property and distributions." "What trust?" Charles's voice cracked. "Evelyn never mentioned—" "Because you never asked about the cabin's ownership structure." Maya smiled coldly. "You assumed a quitclaim deed was sufficient, but Pine Hollow isn't held in Mrs. Lane Keaton's name personally. It's trust property. Your fraudulent transfer is void ab initio, invalid from the beginning." Hoffman opened a new evidence bag. "Mr. Keaton, this USB drive was in your desk drawer. Our tech specialist indicates it contains QuickBooks files for Northway procurement. You want to explain why city payments for concrete are being transferred to an account in your nephew's name?" Charles's nephew, the silent partner he thought no one knew about. I watched him calculate, seeing the walls closing in. "I want my lawyer," he finally muttered. "Absolutely, you're right," Hoffman agreed. But right now, we're executing a federal warrant. He turned back to the laptop. Mrs. Lane Keaton, this spreadsheet shows ghost employees on Keaton Construction payroll. Do you recognize any of these names? Mom studied the screen. Martha Samuels. That's my grandmother's name backwards. She died in 1987. And this social security number? Those are my father's last 4 digits, just rearranged. Each revelation tightened the net. Charles had been lazy in his fraud, using family details he thought no one would check. But I'd checked everything. The moment of complete collapse came when the forensics team emerged from the office. "Hoffman," the lead tech announced. "We've got something. His browser history shows searches for penalty for forging spouse signature, how to transfer property to Cayman Islands, and statute of limitations wire fraud. Also," another agent added, examining papers from Charles's briefcase, "fresh ink on this contract signature. See the smudge? Timestamp on the security video shows him signing it 40 minutes ago." They turned to Charles. "You signed your wife's name on the Riverside expansion guarantee, today, while she was in the kitchen." Charles grabbed for the contract. The marshal stepped forward, and suddenly Charles found himself against the wall, hands being cuffed behind his back. "Charles Keaton, you're under arrest for wire fraud, forgery, and violating a restraining order. You have the right to remain silent." "You orchestrated this," Charles screamed at me as they led him toward the door. "The dinner, the mail, you set me up." I stood slowly, meeting his rage with calm certainty. "I used paperwork and procedures. You used force and fraud. The difference is, my methods are legal." "Mrs. Lane Keaton," Hoffman said gently, "we have enough evidence to proceed with federal charges. The state will handle the assault and domestic violence counts. With the forgery from today, witnessed and recorded, he's looking at significant time." Maya pulled up another document. "The emergency conservatorship is approved. A court-appointed accountant will help recover the stolen funds. The cabin is already being transferred back to the trust." Charles made one last attempt as they paused at the door. "Evelyn, please. 30 years of business. My reputation." "Your reputation?" Mom stood, finding her voice at last. "You stole from me. You forged my name. You hit my daughter." She looked at the officers. "Get him out of my house." As the police car disappeared down Maple Grove Lane, neighbors who'd pretended not to see now stood on porches, witnessing Charles's removal. Mrs. Morse gave me a small nod of approval from her garden. Inside, investigators continued cataloging evidence, but the crucial work was done. Charles's own greed had provided the final nails, signing forgeries while under surveillance, keeping evidence of his crimes within reach, believing his control was absolute. "Harper," Mom said quietly, watching the locksmith test the new deadbolts. "How long have you been planning this?" I pulled out my phone, showing her the upload timestamp from the scanner. "Since the moment he laid hands on me. But really? I think Dad started planning it the day he wrote that trust. He knew someone might try to take advantage of you. He made sure they'd lose everything if they did." The scanner had captured 247 pages total. Every single one was now in federal custody, building a case that would follow Charles through criminal courts, bankruptcy proceedings, and asset forfeiture hearings. He'd thought paper was power. He was right. He just hadn't realized the paper would testify against him. The patrol car's lights painted red and blue streaks across our neighbors' faces as they watched Charles Keaton, contractor, businessman, respected community member, taken away in handcuffs. The same driveway where he'd thrown his weight around now served as his exit stage. Inside, the house felt different, lighter. Mom stood by the new locks, testing each key like she was learning to breathe again. "Ma'am," the locksmith said, handing her a full set. "These are high-security cylinders. Nobody's getting copies without your permission." She nodded, slipping them into her pocket, the first thing in 2 years that was entirely hers. Hoffman finished directing the evidence collection. "Mrs. Lane Keaton, we'll need you at the federal building Monday for a full statement. Ms. Serrano will accompany you." "What happens to the house?" Mom asked quietly. Maya pulled up documents on her tablet. It's yours, free and clear. The fraudulent refinancing has been frozen. Once the criminal case concludes, the court will void all forged transactions. Your credit will be restored. The process server appeared with final paperwork. The cabin at Pine Hollow has been officially transferred back to the Harold Lane Trust. The receiver will ensure no assets can be hidden or transferred until the asset forfeiture is complete. I watched Mom absorb each piece of freedom. The accounts Charles had drained would be traced and recovered. The debts he'd created in her name would be eliminated. The cage he'd built was becoming evidence of his own crimes. Harper, Hoffman said, pulling me aside. That scanner was brilliant, legal, since it was placed with the homeowner's permission, but brilliant. You ever consider a career in financial crimes? I smiled. I like compliance work. It's all about documentation. Speaking of which, he handed me a receipt. Your evidence has been officially entered. Every page, every photo, every video. You built us an airtight case. By 8 p.m., the house was quiet, except for the forensic team finishing in the office. Mom and I sat at the kitchen table where dinner had never been served, sorting through the locks and security information. He had a key to my safety deposit box, Mom said suddenly. I haven't checked it in months. Maya made a note. We'll get a drill order first thing tomorrow. Any contents will be inventoried by the court. A knock interrupted us. Soft, hesitant, Mrs. Morse stood at the door with a casserole dish. Thought you might be hungry, she said, then lowered her voice. We all knew something was wrong. Evelyn should have done more. Mom accepted the dish with tears in her eyes. Thank you, Delilah. As Mrs. Morse left, other neighbors began appearing. The Petermans from 2 doors down, the young couple with the new baby, even the reclusive Mr. Chen from the corner house, each bringing food, support, or just their presence. A community finally stepping forward. Charles always said family business stays private, Mom murmured, watching our neighbors gather on the lawn. He isolated me from everyone. Abusers always do, Maya said gently. It's how they maintain control. The final document of the night was the sweetest. A federal agent brought it from the office, grinning. Found this in his insurance file, he said, handing it to Maya. It's a draft transfer trying to move the cabin to Northway Procurement, dated tomorrow. He was planning to file it in the morning. Maya laughed, actually laughed. He can't transfer what he doesn't own from a jail cell. This just proves intent to commit additional fraud. At 9:47 p.m., the last officer left. The evidence van pulled away loaded with boxes that contained not just documents, but the architecture of Charles's deception. Mom and I stood in her living room, truly hers now. I need to call the bank tomorrow, she said, her voice stronger. And the credit cards, and… Mom, I interrupted gently, we'll handle it all, step by step. You're not alone. She hugged me then, the kind of embrace we hadn't shared since Charles had driven his wedge between us. Your father would be so proud. You used the very thing Charles worshipped, paperwork, to destroy him. I thought about the trust documents, the scanner, the coordinated strike that had taken months to orchestrate. Dad always said the pen was mightier than the sword. Turns out, it's mightier than a fist, too. Outside, the new motion sensor lights I'd ordered online during the evidence collection flickered on, illuminating anyone who approached. The doorbell camera blinked steadily, recording everything. The same door where this had all started was now fortified with more than locks. It was protected by law, documentation, and the truth that paper trails never lie. Charles had beaten me for answering that door, but in the end, it was the door that delivered his justice. One certified letter, one warrant, one handcuff click at a time. The revenge was complete, not through violence or threats, but through the quiet persistence of truth documented, filed, and served according to law. Charles was right about one thing. Family business should stay in the family. He just never realized that protecting family from predators like him was exactly what I'd been doing all along. In the distance, a siren wailed, maybe heading to the federal detention center where Charles would spend the night. Tomorrow would bring lawyers, hearings, and the slow grind of justice, but tonight, my mother was free. The locks were changed, and every piece of paper that mattered was in the right hands. The door was finally closed on Charles Keaton, and this time, he didn't have the key. Thank you so much for listening to this story. I'd love to know where you're tuning in from. Drop a comment below and let's connect. If this story resonated with you, please subscribe to the channel and share your thoughts. Your support means everything, and I can't wait to hear what you think.